And I'm going to turn it over to Maxina Ventura, who is our MC and host this evening. So welcome, Maxina, please. Thanks. Thank you. You also may have heard our other name that we go by, Don't Spray California, when we're working on statewide issues such as this. So on a lot of the different websites, you'd see the link for don'tspraycalifornia.org. So that's us too. It'll either eastbaypesticidealert.org or don'tspraycalifornia.org will get you to our website, and then you can link to other groups working specifically on this issue. We also have a brand new LBAM page, and I put an example of it up there by the front door if you want to see what you'll see if you look on our website. Literally hundreds of hours of work to do a very comprehensive look at this issue.
Hundreds of hours.
Excuse me. So, why don't you get down for a minute? So, anyhow, okay, reality of life. Okay, so, so we'd really like you to take a look so you can learn more. You can read a lot of the toxicology. You can read a lot about the politics of it. You can read about different angles, whatever seems to suit you, your interests. and Juan is offering to here, why don't you go with Juan? In any case, we're very happy to have you join us here so that you can hear from nurses who really understand the issues of the respiratory problems and other problems. Blake, you need to stop. And the farmers and people like Professor Miguel Altieri, who are helping the newer crop of farmers, who are farmers, not just growers, we say, who really learn the soil, learn about soil health, and learn about creating a healthy farm, quite literally from the ground up. So that when you have a healthy farm, you have healthy ecology all around. And what we've always heard is that organic farmers, their farms can withstand some challenge. And so we'll hear more details about that. We'd like you to sign up on our email alert list that's floating around. We have a few clipboards floating around. So now and then we'll send you updates if you'd like. And if anything comes down very suddenly, add your phone number if you'd like so we can get to you through a phone tree system more quickly. The plan here is to stop this program from going forward any further and to try to rescind it so it does not. There's a teach-in that's happening April 23rd, which is going to be happening at Berkeley City College. In fact, I'll be speaking on the panel 12 to 2 with Michael Parenti, Nan Wishner, Tara Levy, who's a naturopathic doctor, a number of other people. So we invite you to come to that, have more details up here, 12 to 2, April 23rd. That'll be an important day. And flyers in the back, very good. So we thought maybe to give a framework for the whole evening, maybe we could start with Professor Altieri. Putting him on the spot, but because before we get into health issues of humans, we start with the health issues of the soil and the health issues of the plant life and vegetation. And there you are. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Miguel Altieri. I'm a professor at UC Berkeley, and I'm an entomologist originally. And interestingly enough, when I came to Berkeley, in 1980, I was part of the Division of Biological Control Stand up, okay, good. We're going to be talking then more loosely. When I came to Berkeley in 1980, I was stationed at the Gill Tract, which is in Albany, and we have the mayor here of the city, and we have to save that. That's another campaign that we need to add. Save the last piece of agricultural land in the Bay Area, Prime 1 soils. There was a group called the Division of Biological Control, which was a group that was formed back in the late 1800s, when, similar to the light brown apple moth, there was a pest that came from Australia, which was called the cottony cushion scale. And that pest that started affecting the citrus industry of California at that time, and they were at that time spraying very heavy pesticides against this pest, and this pest became resistant, like all the insect pests become resistant to pesticides, and they couldn't control it until somebody from California went to Australia and looked for the natural enemies, the predators and parasites that kept that pest as a non-pest in Australia because is the center of origin, and that's why it wasn't a pest in Australia, because it had enemies like predators and parasites that would feed on it. And so they brought from Australia what was called a ladybug called the Rhodolia cardinalis. And that introduction of the ladybug has kept under biological control for more than 100 years the cottony cushion scale. So that's exactly what needs to be done with the light apple, brown apple moth, and many insects that are going to be continuously invading California, because we're in a globalized economy. And when you're in a globalized economy dependent on imports and exports and so on, basically the risk of introducing exotic insects, that is insects that are not native from California, but are exotic, that come from other countries, is going to be huge. So today is the light brown apple moth. Some years ago was the Mediterranean fruit fly, and so on and so on. And we will be constantly be facing that. So who is afraid of the pest? It's basically two groups. One is agribusiness, and the other is the University of California, which serves agribusiness. And so there's a huge report here in the California Agriculture magazine, basically scaring everybody that this pest is going to actually invade California, and it's going to ravage all the crops. And it turns out that where it's pestiferous, mildly pestiferous, is in two countries, in southeastern Australia and in New Zealand, and it has not caused the devastation of agriculture at all. Actually, it causes more than anything cosmetic damages in a few crops. It doesn't really penetrate the fruit, very rarely, like with, for example, the calling moth in apples. That's a serious pest. But it has not devastated, actually, California agriculture either. So why is agribusiness afraid of the calling of this moth, of the LBAM? It's because of trade. Free trade, as all these countries involved, and most of the Western countries are involved, basically functions on restrictions to trade. And one of the restrictions to trade is quarantine pests. Actually, the United States names this pest as a quarantine pest. So it has zero tolerance. It will reject any shipment that will come from a country where the light apple moth is present. It will be rejected by the United States. And the same will happen if the United States starts exporting their crops into countries, knowing those countries that the light apple moth is here, and they will basically reject. I'm originally from Chile, and any shipment that comes from Chile is not only, first of all, there's USDA inspectors in Chile inspecting the fruit that's going to come out of Chile, and if they find one dead, I'm not talking about alive, one dead quarantine pest, it will be rejected, and that actually turns into millions of dollars of losses to the farmers that are exporting. So basically, the main issue here is trade restrictions imposed by importing countries. And agribusiness, obviously, the huge farmers whose systems are the most vulnerable to this pest. Why? Because they grow huge monocultures. They don't have any diversity. They don't have any biological control mechanisms, ecological regulation mechanisms present. And that's why they are afraid of this pest and many other pests. Organic farmers that have diversified farms, that have biological control agents present because there's a lot of biodiversity, should not be afraid of this pest at all. And Ames is one of them, and he's going to be talking about that. Now, $75 million the USDA is going to devote for the control of this pest, the eradication, which is actually an ecological illusion. It's totally unsound to do that because you cannot eradicate organisms. And actually this pest, or this insect, which is not a pest, has been present in California more than a decade. That's for sure. And they're going to be spending $75 million USDA dollars. And one of the questions that they ask here, and they scare the public in this publication, is that the economic impacts of doing nothing would be more than $75 million. I'll tell you, $75 million is actually 20 times more than the budget that the University of California devotes to organic farming. If we had $75 million to do research on organic farming alternatives, we wouldn't have to worry about this pest or any other pest. but they're going to spend that on that. So basically what we need to do is, first of all, we have 85 leaf roller species in California. Some of them are native, some of them are introduced. They're Tortricidae, that's a family. None of them is pestiferous. Why should this one be pestiferous? That's the first thing. And the reason why they're not pestiferous is because, first, they're very polyphagous. They feed on 250 species of plants, different plants, and they need to feed. I mean, they're part of the ecosystem. You know, we feed ourselves. Insects have to feed themselves. And second, because there's a whole array of natural enemies. There's predators. There are parasitoids, little wasps that will lay eggs in their eggs or in their larvae, and so on and so on. So we can encourage these beneficial insects by providing flowers and diversity into the systems that are going to provide the pollen and nectar they need. Obviously, in large-scale monocultures, like in the Central Valley, where you have just cotton or alfalfa or peaches or whatever, just in monocultures, you don't find environmental conditions for these beneficial insects to reproduce. So there's where the pest is going to be a huge problem. If they don't spray, what they're going to do, they're going to spray heavy pesticides like organophosphates and things of that nature. But small farmers, by having diversity and by encouraging naturally occurring beneficial insects, and also by releasing trichogramma wasps, which actually you can buy by mail, you can control this pest, and also by applications in emergency situations of another microorganism called, is a bacteria called Bacillus thuringiensis, which if you spray it, actually Bacillus thuringiensis is a soil organism originally. Actually, when the little larvae eats the leaf that has this microorganism, it will die. So there's a lot of alternatives, and I think what we need to do is just oppose the spraying because of the other issues that are connected with it, especially the inert ingredients that are associated with the sex pheromone. And then what we need to do is just basically conduct a lot of monitoring in rural areas and urban areas, and then also conduct the research on the one side to make our systems less vulnerable to this pest or any other pest by diversifying the system, breaking the monocultures, and also by doing foreign exploration. We should go to Australia and find beneficial insects that are controlling that pest there. There's more than 25 different wasps species that maintain it control. You can bring it here, and then they go through a quarantine process. You can release it. It will not become a pest. It will not become a monster like many people are afraid. There's a long history of biological control here in California. There's more than 25 pest species that have been controlled by introducing native predators and parasites from the centers of origin of this exotic pest. And it has saved California millions and millions and millions of dollars in pesticides and in environmental impacts. So I think what we need to lobby, in addition to stop the spraying, we need to lobby the University of California to put money into biological control and alternatives to pesticides for this pest and all the pests that are going to be coming in the next generation. So I urge you to continue your pressure on the university. Thank you.
Thank you. I think maybe we can have Robert Lieber right now go into some of the more of the background, follow up from what you started with, and go into more of the background of the program and the health effects.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to see you here today. My name's Robert Lieber. I'm the mayor of Albany. You know, I know you're all against this spray, and you're all against this spray for good reasons, as I am. And I don't need to go really deeply into that. I think as a nurse, all I had to see is this was a skin irritant, that you could breathe it into your lungs and that it would disintegrate and stay there, to know that we're just going to cause a lot of asthma and a lot of problems. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. We have all these health reports coming out today and other days, and they're all verbiage. They aren't talking about checking the patients that complain for patients. All they are is talking about checking a piece of paper. And when I had an opportunity yesterday to talk to Secretary Calamara nose to nose, and I've got to say I had to leave the room, it was obvious that they have no intention of not spraying. There is nothing that we can say or do to this group at this time to stop them from spraying. And well, the lawsuits are in progress. I represent a coalition of cities now. We are moving forward with legal action. Whether that's enough, I don't know. I'm very, very depressed and scared about this. People are concerned because it's happening now, and it's going to happen to you soon. And, you know, I was at that meeting with Calamara, and I got to say that I actually was stunned, because the speaker that came on after him scared me even more and made him look like a small pest. And that was Lawrence Livermore Laboratory coming on with their top brass and actually promoting that we needed to start a new nuclear power plant every week in the United States forever. And they have 5 scheduled and approved for Texas, and God help them.
I go with the moth.
Well, I say save the moth. I say this moth is endangered, and we need to care deeply about this moth because it's part of our ecosystem, and it's been at home here for up to 50 years, and I kind of like the little guy now after everything I know. But what I wanted to talk to you about tonight really is a bigger question of what happened here, what went wrong here. Why are we here today when we might actually have to go out and stand in front of these planes and say, you know, don't do this. And it's a bigger thing that's happened. I think the previous speaker alluded to it when he talked about trade imports, because this is a trade issue. This is not a moth issue. The moth has done no damage. It's not likely to do any damage. From a perspective of integrated pest management, the first thing we should be doing now is nothing. We should be doing the sticky traps and the research and looking at why this moth is even on this list. Now, I have a theory because nobody can even find where this moth is on a list. How did it get on this list? I think a guy from Monsanto snuck in to the USDA one night about 35 years ago, saw the list out on the table and said, oh, this is a good idea. And he put it right on the bottom. Because that's essentially what's happened here, is we have buried somewhere in a bill a moth that was put on strictly to stop competition to U.S. agriculture. And they've been using this to beat New Zealand, Canada, Mexico, Australia, and any other country who can support this moth or has this moth over the head and saying, you can't take your produce and sell it in the United States. And now what we have is, oh, whoops, so one of them came here. You know, and they didn't even find one until a Berkeley professor found one. And we've looked at the data from the years before, very bad data, very poorly kept. I feel that they didn't find one because they didn't want to find one. It was bad to find one. And now they've got them all over the place. And of course, they say that they've spread through our 11 counties and through the states in just 1 year. I guess they all have bus tickets. But anyway, you know, I like to make fun of it, but it really isn't a fun thing. And it does go back to the very big questions of why. So you've got to understand that it is big money we're talking about here. That should they drop the import restrictions, I call it tariffs by spray at this point, it's going to cost somebody big bucks. But the cost of letting them spray the people is far, far higher. And they are so short-sighted and they don't understand that this is not something you can do. You can't spray people for economic reasons that are somewhat ethereal until we actually see what happens. Now, where does this all lead? And I put it to you today that it leads straight back to our administration. The Bush administration and the way that they've gutted every environmental law that has come before them. We can't go to court now to file for saving the water that LBAM is going to pollute because the Water Cleanliness Act it's been gutted. It's just not there anymore. It's not a tool that is available for us. And every tool that was available for us has been tainted, along with every department that this administration has had the opportunity to place its people in. And so here we are, and this is like a thing that just represents all this. This is weapons of mass destruction here. You know, and that's what they're saying is we have the moth of mass destruction here in our city, and they have to come in and they have to declare war on us to get rid of it. And yet they've never produced one shred of evidence to show us that it is even a pest. And if you go back in the records and try to find how they declared this a voracious pest, you can't find it because it isn't there. Not even the basic science has been done. And so here we are today, frustrated, angry, scared, hoping that we won't get sprayed. Right now, every one of us needs to be an activist. Every one of us has to do something. One of the things to do is to write the governor, because he can sign this thing off. I asked Calamara, but he wouldn't do it. So that's our next one. To work on every bill that is currently before the Assembly and the Senate. But really, the only thing that's going to stop this is going to be you. I know that if I have to, I'll go down and stand in front of a plane or do something. But, you know, it's not good. So, I don't want to depress you. Because you got to keep up the fight. And there's other things going on. And you can never stop. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I wanted to make two comments. One is I have a friend here in Monterey, and they they sued the Department of Agriculture. They're the ones in charge. It's pending. They are completely powerless. They sprayed 3 times since November. So what we need are some celebrities on a consistent basis to get everybody's attention, and then maybe we can mobilize everybody in the area. But most people are so busy surviving that we can't act. So I'm just throwing that out there.
It is difficult, and that's why we find ourselves in this horrible position in our country in general, is because everybody is busy surviving. I also think that school boards, if you have children, it's time for school boards to come out and declare that they don't want their schoolyards and their children sprayed. Calamara recently said at Alameda, in front of their city council, he said that, you know, they could not legally spray farm workers. Speaking of Cesar Chavez, who got it, who actually brought that issue forward and said, you know, these are people and they're in working in these fields and you cannot spray them. And the state of California, you cannot spray them. And they couldn't spray Checkmate on them either. But they can spray us.
I think it was Monday we went to the San Francisco Board of Soups, and the council members asked really good questions. One of them was about the spraying of farm workers, and the reply from the representative from the state of Food and Ag said, well, it's up to them whether or not they want to leave the fields when we spray. That was his answer, honest to God. It's like he didn't care. And then he said, but of course the people, they'll be notified and they can be indoors. So this is racism, it's double standards, it's crazy, it doesn't make any sense. This is sick. Thank you.
How about focusing on a MoveOn.org type campaign where we're not just piddling around with a few scores of thousands of people, but 500,000 and more. And weekly one-page statements in the Chronicle, in the LA Times, letting people know what they're going to have for dinner, breakfast, and lunch. You know, what they're going to be experiencing if they dare to enter this state.
So we're going to have a time after speakers to have more questions and answers because clearly there are so many. I do want to point out that this program I've been working on these issues for over 15 years. These photos I took in Sonoma, where my family used to live in the middle of one of the many cancer clusters there. I witnessed farm workers being sprayed in the fields, being aerial sprayed or being tractor sprayed. They don't have the choice to leave. And it's an everyday occurrence, not just with this program. This program is just one in a line of many, and that's something we want you to understand, that there was the med fly, there's always a new manufactured crisis within ag departments and mosquito abatement districts. This is a means of attaining funding and attaining equipment, assuring staff for a period of time. The glass-wing sharpshooter program resulted in staff, equipment, and so on assured for a certain amount of time, and then was easily renewable, in other words, without going through a lot of the same that they would have had to, that they went through originally to get the program underway. So you know that with each one of these programs, you usually have about a 10-year cycle or so. So there was a glass-wing sharpshooter, and now, about a decade later, here we are. We've got this, but already I was seeing for a number of years from about 2000 on, I thought, well, gypsy moth is going to be coming at us soon. That's what we're going to be hearing about. And so a few months ago, I thought, I know in the middle of hearing about this insect, I know I'm going to hear CDFA start invoking the gypsy moth. Well, sure enough, having heard Kawamura speak in person a number of times now, I have heard him invoke the gypsy moth many times. We are being set up to accept that we are about to be devoured by these insects, and so we might as well just lay down and forget it. You were talking about blocking planes or whatever. You should all know that, it was with the glass-wing sharpshooter program, we turned a corner when people started to go through nonviolence trainings and to prepare for risking arrest or for supporting other community members who were going to do so. That's when we turned a corner, and we succeeded in moving a lot of CDFA's program back out of Sonoma and Napa counties. We want you to know that some nonviolence trainings have been happening already. We have another one coming up April 19th. You're all welcome at the CAS, California Alliance to Stop the Spray offices in Santa Cruz. It will be held the 19th of April from 11 to 5. It's a time to come together, think about your own envelope, where your comfort level is, and how far you think you might be able to go when you're really when you're confronted with your loved ones being sickened or possibly dying. Because that's what happens. In my old neighborhood, we had deaths of cancer, one after the other. 5 families left from our end of the neighborhood with between 99 and 2000. My dear friend Ben died at 47. And not of cancer, in that case, heart arrhythmias, which many of us had out there. Once I got out of Sonoma, my heart arrhythmias stopped. So, not all the health problems, but that at least stopped. So, not soon enough, though, for Ben. I want to go on and ask John Davis if he would go on. Now, John Davis is also an RN, and he works particularly with a geriatric population, and so one of the many larger populations who are understood to be even more at risk. Those of us with MCS, multiple chemical sensitivities, babies, children, like who's left? I guess like you 30-year-old guys, I suppose, maybe you're considered to be, healthy or whatever, but a lot of us are already understood to be not at our best, and particularly a geriatric population.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, yes, ma'am. First thing, a question.
We're preaching to the choir here, so it'd be very helpful for those of us who can't stay the whole time to get different ideas about things we might do beyond signing a petition. So if you have ideas, speakers, please share them with us throughout your talk.
Okay, I'll do that first off then. Everybody was talking about the governor. He's married to Maria Shriver, and while we may not get to the governor, maybe we could get to her. And if we could talk to her, if a good large group could talk to her and bring up some of the same points that the speakers have brought up so far, the health effects and such, because he could stop it with a signature, and then, he'll listen to her. So, hope so. Really? Okay, everybody heard that? If you call his office, you can leave a message for Maria Shriver. So if everybody, wants to make phone calls tomorrow, that'd be one thing. Letters to the editor, letting other people know. I'm a registered nurse. I work in a nursing home with a bunch of little old folks who have all kind of health problems. Some of them are smokers, and they have emphysema and different things. But even in a healthy person, if they spray this stuff, there's plenty of people who will notice no ill effects. But the thing of it is, it's cumulative. And for those that are immunocompromised, does this checkmate or cross the placental barrier? And what's the effect on fetal development? Does it go into the breast milk? Does it cross the blood-brain barrier? And I can tell you one thing for sure, it's supposed to be coming up in little plastic pellets that are just microns big, so you can inhale this. The human body was never intended to inhale plastic. Okay, you can swallow plastic and it'll pass through the alimentary canal and you won't have much problem. Inhale it and you're in a bind. So that's one of the more scary aspects of this spraying thing as far as I'm concerned. I'll get in front of a plane. I don't have a problem doing that. So anyway, I've said about all I had to say. I'm no expert on checkmate. I do know that every chemical out there is supposed to come with what's called an MSDS, Material Safety Data Sheet. And if you're going to be exposed to something, this sheet is supposed to tell you what you can do to treat it for inadvertent exposure, what the flash point is, what the, how long chain molecule it is, and it shows that sort of stuff. If we had one of those, and they ought to be provided by the company that makes Checkmate, we could spread that out and maybe even get enough money together to have it published in the Chronicle and such, so that people have an idea of what they're facing, right? You don't need to be afraid of the moth. You do need to be afraid of what the government's going to do to the moth. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to let everybody know that the ingredients were released, not of the first Checkmate OLRF, which was sprayed in Monterey in September last fall. That has not been released, but the second formulation has, Checkmate LBAM-F, and doctors have gone over the ingredients, and there's definitely one carcinogen on the list. It's called DHT, and then there's a lot of other suspected mutagens and irritants and a possible endocrine disruptor.
Okay.
Not good stuff.
Right. This constitutes de facto chemical warfare on the population of the Bay Area. So if we need to talk to Maria Shriver, to our neighbors who don't, there's a lot of people who see this and don't care. My son, when he was in junior high, back in Hobbs, New Mexico, first period he was running around the schoolyard while they're spraying Roundup. And all the kids are inhaling really deeply, and my son complained of some respiratory problems. I asked the principal, I said, do you think it might be a good idea if you didn't do that? I said, oh, yes, ma'am.
I don't understand. I see all these people on the corners asking you to sign petitions. Why isn't this on the petition?
It ought to be.
Sign.
It ought to be. I don't know, maybe.
Why isn't it?
There's one right there. Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, on May 1st, the Longshore are shutting down all the ports of the West Coast against the war in Iraq. Now, why can't we talk to the Longshore, who are highly conscious, and have them shut down the ports to stop the spraying? Now, that's a physical action that costs the companies and big business millions and millions of dollars. They have to listen to. And not only that, some of the ports on the southeast coast are going to be shut down, and some on the Gulf.
I like it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's what we need to do. We need to enlist the labor movement on the side of ecologists.
Absolutely, because everybody's getting sprayed is in this together. Yes, ma'am.
So if we can hook in with the labor movement, we're doing it May 1st.
That's
So
right.
we'll get the contacts to hook in with them. So
Does anybody have union longshoremen?
The guy who
Sure.
passed the resolution.
We've
You
got
bet.
longshore people in the room.
Great.
Can we bring up Amy right now? Amy is from the Union of the East Bay Regional Parks District, and last week...
Come up here, Amy.
Now,
now get the rest of that board.
Now you get to hear what they approved.
She instigated all of this. So at my last week's union meeting in April, I brought forth an as yet unwritten version of a resolution opposing the aerial spray. And anybody is welcome to a copy. ASME Local 2428 resolution opposing the California Department and the USDA pesticide program to attempt to eradicate the light brown apple moth. Whereas the Union of Park Workers is pledged to conserve the land, the air, the water, and the life that resides there for the present sustenance of the people and use by future generations. And whereas the Union Management Ecology Committee is working in a cooperative manner to implement the district's goal of reducing the use of chemicals on district property. And whereas each of the methods planned by the USDA and CDFA's pesticide program to attempt to eradicate the light brown apple moth, whether by aerial spraying, ground spraying, twist ties, paramethrins on trees and utility poles, chemical traps, or other related methods, have known and unknown negative health and environmental impacts associated with them. And whereas science has shown that chemicals in the environment pose significant health risks to the public and ecosystem, and whereas scientists have reported that the light brown apple moth has not caused any substantial crop damage and is more successfully controlled without the use of chemicals by encouraging natural predators and healthy soils to prevent the spread of damaging infestations. And whereas Local 2428 is concerned about the health and safety of park workers and park users, especially the most vulnerable populations of young, old, or the infirm, who may be exposed while working or visiting in district parklands to unnecessary and untested levels of known carcinogenic and mutagenic chemicals. And now therefore be it resolved, Local 2428 strongly opposes this eradication plan and demands that the USDA downgrade the pest classification of the light brown apple moth to reflect the lack of risk it poses. And therefore be it resolved, Local 2428 will work with communities across the state, the nation, and the globe to seek alternatives to chemical pest management by creating healthy habitat, including but not limited to the use of biointensive gardening to attract natural predators and soil microbes, and the addition of organic compost to add nitrogen and minerals to the soil in order to support the plant's own immunity against unwanted pests. Thank you very much.
So, we've got on our website, you can contact us to get the copy of the general resolution we have floating around from which this came out of that, and also Berkeley Peace and Justice Committee a recommendation to the City Council I'll read later on. But we want to get over to the farmers before us. I have a particular joy having farmers from sort of my old neighborhood here where I was poisoned and my children were poisoned. To have guys who are doing really good work in that area is a little tear-jerking for me, because I watched a lot of my neighbors die, and a lot of animals, I also have a really great deal of happiness about hearing that you're working with Phil Couturi. Phil Couturi is somebody I had speaking out in Sonoma a decade ago, at a program, and he's bit by bit he's been a few acres at a time, getting in there and getting people transitioning to organics, and you're working with him on a project like that right now, and so I'd love to hear you talk about this and talk about that work with him on transitioning.
Cool. Yeah, my name's Rob Schultz, and we farm about 600 acres. I'm sorry, I'm new to this. 600 acres of organic grapes for quality wine production. And what's cool about what we do is the people who can afford our services, we have at least 2 clients who regularly have dinner with Rush Limbaugh. Best friends. But they're organic farmers, because we can show them that organic farming and biodynamic farming makes better taste in food, better taste in grapes, better wine. So I'm originally from Iowa, where everything has been covered in pesticides for decades, and I wanted to be involved in farming, but I didn't want anything to do with chemical farming. I think of it as militaristic farming. And all the pesticides and the fertilizer industry came out of the military-industrial complex between the wars, and so, me and the people I work with were well aware of these things, and we consider our fight, which is just to grow great grapes, to be along the lines of the anti-war movement. I don't know, because, and so we have the light brown apple moth in our vineyards. We've had it for who knows how long. I saw one yesterday. It's fine, you know, whatever. We're not worried about it because we farm with nature and we keep things in balance. We have wild, you know, some people would call them weeds, but they're wildflowers and they support beneficial insects. Beneficial insects control the light brown apple moth. They control all sorts of stuff. This light brown apple moth thing reminds me of another pest that was recently rediscovered or discovered in California, and they threw every chemical they could. The vine mealybug. I don't know if you heard about this, but Carneros has tons of vine mealybug, and they nuke Carneros. It's right on the bay. And after years...
You're looking at the Carneros.
Yeah.
Looking there.
You know, everything drains into the bay. After a couple years of research through UC Berkeley, Kent Dana and Monica Cooper, they've proved, they didn't set out to prove this, but they had the idea that organic methods of controlling the vine mealybug is just as, and in fact better at controlling the vine mealybug than throwing every military chemical that you could think of on your farm. So I don't really know what to tell you guys about what to do to stop the spraying. I can just tell you that it's not a problem for the grape growers. It's not us caring about it, and we're opposed to it. The one thing that, the one thing that really distresses, one of the many things that really distresses me about this event is that they're calling Checkmate an organic pesticide. Yeah. And I don't know if you're aware of what happened when the word organic got transferred to the U.S. government. You can cut down a tree and make a stick and call it organic, but if you hit somebody in the head with it, it's not organic. And so, but organic farmers gave up the use of the rights to control the use of the word organic by having it they gave control of the word to the USDA. And so now what you're seeing is greenwashing with that word organic. And when I first read about the Alabama and the Checkmate thing, I was like, oh, it's an organic pesticide, no big deal. Okay. But you learn more about it and you realize that they're using that word to sell you a lie. It's like wearing a Che Guevara shirt, it doesn't really mean anything. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say that in Berkeley. Yeah, that's my opinion. Not a big deal. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Ames Morrison, and
That was Rob Schultz.
I manage an organic vineyard and winery called Medlock Ames. It's near the town of Healdsburg in Sonoma County. And I have 15 employees, which means that there are 15 families, including my own, that are sustained by our land. So I feel a tremendous weight on my shoulders with every decision I make. I know that 15 families are counting on me to make the right choices. If an invasive insect pest becomes established in our county, and I guess it already has, and on our land, it could potentially cause huge economic loss. I have insurance, but I know that the insurance company would expect me to do everything I could before paying out a claim. If losses are large enough, I'll have to make cuts, which means that some of those families, including my own, will suffer. On the other hand, if I spray dangerous chemicals, I know that there's a potential for our people to get sick. So I recognize that the decisions I make have real consequences and affect real people. I don't make these decisions without serious soul searching. The decisions that I have to make on our small vineyard are analogous to the decisions that we as a community have to make on our collective land. Instead of the 15 families that I worry about, we as a community have to weigh the economic and health impacts of our decisions on millions of families. Agriculture is a vital part of California's economy. If a major pest damages our agricultural production, the repercussions will be felt in our cities and towns, as well as the more rural parts of the state. But I think even before getting to the point of deciding between impoverishing or poisoning our people, we have to take a step back and try to think rationally about this pest and whether or not it poses as grave a threat as people are saying. The light brown apple moth in its native Australia is a serious vineyard pest. Its damage to the vines is minimal, but the feeding on the great berries allows rots and molds to enter, and it opens the door for more serious infections that are normally more easily controlled. While this is a serious problem, it's not the end of the world. Farmers in Australia have found a way to deal with this problem, organic farmers too. We're not sure how this pest got here, and it's understandable that people are nervous about a new potential threat, but we have decades of Australian research and experience to draw from to teach us lessons. Additionally, the light brown apple moth has a close relative that is native to California and is a vineyard pest here. It's called the omnivorous leaf roller. It's in the same family, and causes the same damage as the light brown apple moth. And it's what environmental scientists call an ecological homologue. It occupies the same ecological niche as in one community as it does in another. So we know how to deal with this problem, and the solutions are the same as dealing with the light brown apple moth. I don't really like the idea of this exotic pest finding its way into my vines, but I'm not going to freak out about it. I know what damage to expect and how to prepare for it. I have faith in the years of hard work I've invested in creating a sustainable farm that's rich with biodiversity and holds those solutions for most of the biological problems I'm faced with. I feel more comfortable putting my trust in Mother Nature than in mankind's pesticides.
I would like to read, actually, the recommendation that the Peace and Justice Committee of the Berkeley City Council, the recommendation they're making to the Berkeley City Council formally, it'll probably be April 22nd that it'll be heard. And this is, they've done a resolution, you've heard about that. That one was focusing on aerial spraying, and this one is focusing on, of course, aerial spraying and the rest of the program, and making sure to remember people in Santa Cruz and Monterey. Here is how it reads. The Peace and Justice Commission recommends that the Berkeley City Council oppose the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, and California Department of Food and Agriculture, CDFA, pesticide program to attempt to eradicate the light brown apple moth, LBAM, whether by aerial spraying, ground spraying, twist ties, permethrin, or other related methods, and requests that the USDA downgrade the LBAM pest classification to reflect the lack of risk it poses until such time as environmental impact reports have been completed and public hearings have been held on all of these methods. Furthermore, the Berkeley City Council should take legal action across regional borders for a strong united front with all affected municipalities opposed to the program. So, call your city council people, email them, show up, tell them that that's what you want them to do, that you want them to oppose the whole program, the full program. They've had a lot of documentation, and they're ready to do that if they hear from people that's wanted. So it seems like maybe, Mr. Lieber, you might not have had the chance to quite finish up.
I was looking for a way to sit down. I thought I had it. Everybody here is so well educated. I just want to talk about one program that I did that I found that was real easy, and I think you can take back and do with other groups. And also, I think there's other groups that need to be given special attention now. The park boards, of course, you heard about. The Alameda County Board of Supervisors can't quite get it going. Only Keith Carson really has come out strongly against this program. And our county health official, the head doctor, also has. But those are the only ones, and the rest of that board needs to get on board. What I did in early January when I learned about this program is I got together and in February we had a rally in Sacramento, and we formed a group and it called the Coalition of California Cities to Stop the Spray. And the single thing that we did was say we are going to get resolutions or proclamations out of every city that we possibly can. And now here we are a couple months later, and our organization has about 36 to 37 cities have passed resolution in opposition. Of those cities, if you combine the entire population that they represent, it's over 1 million people. So we've been sending out a newsletter once a week to the governor, showing every city that has passed a resolution, the populations that those cities represent, and how strongly opposed we are to this spray, also with a number of when the first spraying is to begin again, a countdown, so to speak. And what I propose, I'm getting the first thing, I think it's either in Berkeley or Emeryville, the first school board is going to take up a resolution. And people need to get this information to your school boards because, you know, they're saying that you need to wipe down all the equipment. Well, actually what they say is, well, you could as a precaution, but it's not necessary. It's necessary. So the schools need to take a stand, and I think parents and children will have a huge impact. But you can really do that. I think just with a small number of people, you can start a newsletter, you can start sending it to the governor, you can start sending it to your neighbors, you can start sending things to the paper, because we need to keep a constant buzz. Constant. It cannot go unheard. And so that means that every week you sit down and you write your local paper a little note. You ask to have a guest editorial by somebody. You start a little newsletter on your own. Because we only have, 54 days now? 54 days until they start spraying again. And so this action, August? I'm talking about Santa Cruz. I mean, those, we have to take them into account. They're going to be the first hit, and that's why this nonviolent
Violence training
is very important, and I think it's very important for us to take seriously. I saw a couple questions, and I'll just mediate some questions because I really don't have much more to say. So I saw this person here first.
If the environmental review was waived, is there a way of getting that to be opened up?
When they declared an emergency, Secretary Calamora signed an emergency declaration waiving everything. So they aren't even preparing to have an environmental impact report completed before they start spraying. We're trying to get that, but I don't know.
No, I have a question and a comment. Was the U.S. the first one that called the quarantine on New Zealand and Australia?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I thought. So that should be.
Yeah, we made this quarantine. We made this problem. This is a manufactured problem. This is a problem that was solely created to protect the agricultural interests of the United States and our growers against competition from these other countries.
What do you know between the connection between Arnold and the CEO of Checkmate?
Oh, they're buddies. They trade money. He's a big donor. What can I say? Say no more.
So a question and a suggestion I'd like to think that how is the USDA officially involved in this?
The USDA is the agency that has declared this the light brown apple moth as a voracious invasive species and has it on a list of voracious invasive species. A congressman just today has called for a hearing, and he's on the Ag Committee, and I do forget his name, I apologize. Sam Farr has called for an investigation of exactly why this apple moth is on this list. And so we have the first crack to get in there and get this apple moth off this list, because this would be a wonderful way to put an end to this program.
To answer his question a little more, most of the funding is coming from the USDA, and that has been part of the finger pointing that's been very elegant about how this happens. The funding is coming from the USDA, and the quarantine is from the USDA, but the program is administered by the state. So the state will say, it's not us, it's the USDA, and the feds will say, it's not us, it's a state issue. So one of the things that I think is very important is for people to begin to address this at the federal level, which Sam Farr,
Yes.
Santa Cruz is beginning to do. So talk to Foster, talk to Blank, talk to Pelosi, talk to everybody.
Yes.
That's where the buck stops. All of our wonderful state legislators in the Bay Area have these legislation pending. That's terrific, but it's going to stop at the federal level. And also, the economic impact
You have to look at, realtors now have to declare that houses are in the spray zone.
Yep.
The impact on the public health infrastructure, it's not going to be able to take it. The school absenteeism, workplace absenteeism, it will cost the state far more money than the worst that the LBAN can do. And my feeling is, unless you can make the economic argument to Arnold, etc., this is not going to stop because the moral, environmental, and health argument won't work. So I would say reality issues are
Quick. Here's somebody that's been waiting for a few seconds. So, yeah.
I just have a very quick.
Okay. Quick.
Contra Costa County, I know people in Contra Costa County, they're scared. Contact.
Yeah, because she wants people to work in Contra Costa County. The Board of Supervisors there did not pass a resolution. We're very supportive of Calamara, more than they should have been. They need to be re-educated. The City of Richmond, however, came out with a very strong resolution in opposition, and they do need some more work.
Can I do a little related? I want to let her know about a resource here. On our website, Don't Spray California, on the light brown apple moth page, you can scroll down a ways, and you will see a link that says areas to be pesticided. I think is how it's entitled, something like that. And it includes, you can look at the areas and what the CDFA has said most recently about what's to be sprayed or otherwise applied where. And we have next to those areas then all the contact people we could find, their emails and all the other contact information for various city people, including public health people and so on, and city attorneys and so on. And then we have another document right nearby that, which, so ISIS took all of those emails, extracted them from the other document and put them into one long document of just emails. So you can cut and patch as much of as you need and as much as your email system will allow you to do at one time. You can just cut and paste out of that and send off whatever you need to send off. So we've been getting a lot of information to municipalities all around, all the municipalities on the list that way. It's very helpful shortcut in your work.
I got this idea about some action we can do from somebody at the El Sobrante meeting, which is a boycott. Checkmate is owned by billionaires Linda and Stuart Resnick. We can boycott their products, which may be the only way to get anybody's attention. So they own Paramount Farms with 30,000 acres of almonds, 25,000 acres of pistachios, sold under the Sunkist label, 6,000 acres of pomegranates in the southern San Joaquin Valley. I don't know if they're going to be sprayed. Another 15,000 acres in Madera for almonds, pistachios, and pomegranates. Paramount Citrus is a sister company of Paramount Farming, and it supplies 20% of Sunkist citrus. You can see here there's a lot of people to boycott our products. The Resnicks own Fuji Water and Teleflora, the world's largest flower seller, and POM, a pomegranate juice, and a pheromone dispensing product called Puffer Dispenser, sold by Paramount Farming's ancillary company, Suterra, and Checkmate is a Suterra product. So I would like to know right now if there's anybody here who would like to help organize a boycott. I mean, we need to do more than talk. Oh, okay.
And they also own the Franklin bin.
Well, they were going to sell it. They were trying to sell it, so maybe they don't anymore. Well, I think we can organize a nationwide boycott because if it can happen here, it can happen anywhere. So is there anybody here who wants to help start?
Yes.
And let's get some names and.
Interestingly enough, in our newsletter, we just printed a statement from the USDA that they're going to start monitoring 50 states for LBAM. So, where this is going, yes. There's 5 bills in the moving forward. The most powerful one is the Swanson bill, making it demanding us have the right to spray. The other ones have to do with ERI before you spray. None of them are going to stop this spray. Some of they just it's good to do, but it's an exercise that isn't going to stop the spray. Right. Some of the organizations that are in place, that are leading, that are holding this forum right now, are available, and everybody should join them. Like,
Stop the Spray East Bay.
That's a good.
We're working like crazy. We're totally buried in work and need help, and we've been working since day one on this issue.
And we've been working together, and she speaks true. If you just go to those sites, you will find more work than you can handle.
That's for East Bay Pesticide Alert. Also,
Another.
Don't Spray California. That's us that
So-
put this together.
And
No, we've got a lot going on together. I want to let you know that there's a listserv, for instance, Stop Overhead Spraying. It's, believe me, we're covering a lot more than just the aerial spraying on that. And you're all invited to go to that, stopoverheadspraying.org.
Yep. On the Yahoo groups.
On the Yahoo groups.
Look for Stop Overhead Spraying and it'll take you there. Sign up. There's over 200 people. We're organizing together. We're sharing research.
Sharing all kinds of resources.
And
there
also-
is California Alliance to Stop the Spray, which is helping to coordinate a lot of actions.
and also stopthespray.org. Yeah, we have to go to stopthespray.org. Has a large petition that they're signing, and they're trying to get 1 million signatures, and we're pretty darn close.
We're here from Cass, San Francisco, Bonnie.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Good. Yeah, you know what?
Website?
Well, the website is www.stopthespray.org, and that will get you to 1 million of these links, and they all link to all the organizations.
There could be a follow-up meeting here. I think there needs to be an organizing meeting. People who want to organize to do something should stay here afterwards.
Well, I think we're getting to that point where everybody needs to stand up and talk to each other, take each other's phone number.
Okay, I have a humble but maybe a good strategy. And you know, we need to be ethical in our thoughts and our speech, and we need to hold these officials accountable for their criminal thought words. And I got a copy of the I think it was March 26th or something, whatever the last council meeting was when they talked about the L-bomb issue. And one of the people with Kawamura was saying that that asthmatics did not have to worry about the plastic because their lungs are more congested, so it wouldn't go into the lower lung capacity levels. And yeah, see, it covered out. So I gave that to Nan Wisner, and I should probably find that quote. And on the website, we should get a place where we're shaming them, and we're also holding them accountable for those actions. So I'm sure there's more quotes like the one she talked about, too. Let them remember this, and I think we can get them on lawsuits later.
Robert Lieber was just suggesting that this is a good time to bring ourselves down into smaller groupings of people. I've been hearing a few different, okay, a question before that. Nancy.
Okay, my question is that, and I have a suggestion, but the question has to do with going back to the issue about the trade. So that doesn't get in the paper.
Right.
The paper never talks about it, they just argue about is the moth bad or not.
And they say yes.
And I would like to hear not only about Checkmate as a producer, I want to hear who the other companies are, that if we're talking about a boycott, that we want to identify. We want to not only boycott, but let's picnic. Because it's local where the press can come. And let's do it large. Let's do it after we have a big meeting at the either not Zellerbach, but the city community theater.
Right.
So we can get a lot more people. You know, the people who wouldn't just automatically come to something like this, so that we can have lots of picnickers. But I'd like to hear who they are. Who are the companies besides Checkmate that would benefit? I want the list.
Well, here you've got it. Besides Sutera, Stuart Resnick's company making Checkmate, there's Dow, there's Pacific Biocontrol, Certus, and there are others. So if you look on our website at the toxicology, you'll get the different companies. So Dow, remember Dow, Agent Orange? Remember Dow?
And they're
Um,
they want to use these departments. I
and
don't
you-
know that it's the whole
and you know-
school or whatever, but it's Dow Chemical.
And you know, Bear, right here, Bear is part of the Glassy Wing Sharpshooter Program, right here in Berkeley.
Just one thing that I wanted to remind the group is that if we're going to stop spraying, which we should, for all the reasons have been said, and this insect for some reason becomes established, and many other pests that are going to come, we need to have alternatives, because that's what we've been talking about. We're going to deal with them with alternatives. So we need to pressure the university for more funding for research in biological control, which is a field that is dying. Because, for example, at Berkeley, when I retire, for example, which is not far from now, there's nobody that is going to be teaching alternative agriculture. Everybody else is involved in biofuels and biotechnology and things of that nature. So if we don't have the research people to conduct the research on alternatives together with farmers, then what is
The land on which to do it.
on the land where to do it, obviously. So if we're talking about alternatives, we need to have the alternatives, and the alternatives are dying by the day because the university is going in a totally different direction than alternatives to pesticides.
Ladies first.
Just for a minute, let me say in perspective, we've got Chevron trying to expand in Richmond. We've got British Petroleum. They had war games in Oakland, and then they declared a war. Let's keep the perspective. They don't like us activists that much. They don't care about people, animals, farmers, or anybody. So let's just keep it in perspective in our backpacks. Thank you.
I grow food in my backyard, and I'm worried about if the spray comes, do I not eat the food? How do I wash like tomatoes and peppers and other things like that? Or maybe we should use that as advertising to say that you can't eat this stuff. I don't know.
That I don't know. I don't know. I would wash with a good vegetable brush, and that's about the best you can do. But there was a lady, and I believe it was you. Somebody said to me something about MoveOn.org, and those people are incredible organizers. And if we could get them behind us.
And on Chris Welch's program today, you were magnificently on that program too, weren't you? You did a fantastic job. Was it you or someone else? Was it you that was talking about that it's reactivated when it's wet?
There you go.
So you can't wash it off. You can't let your kid play on the grass. You can't water your garden even with irrigation.
Can't walk on the ground and walk back in your house.
You can't touch something and wash your hands because then you're activating it. It's pervasive.
It looked to me like the bioremediation mentioned with the wasp is about the best way of mitigating whatever little effect this moth is going to have.
Problem for that too. What I understand the problem to be the wasp is that you can put millions of these per acres, and in fact, they don't just target elbam. All of a sudden, you have a wasp that's going after all the native species of other similar moths, butterflies. We just don't know what the effect on the ecosystem is to do that kind of release of a predator like this. So there is no completely safe way to do anything. There's probably a good way to do it, and that's what we have to discover what that is. And the first thing is to do real study of this insect and its effect upon our agro business and its effect on just where we live and our plants. And I think what we'll find is that it's fine, but that's what we need to do. I do want to call on everybody, but it is getting to the point where we can answer questions all night, and people need to talk to each other and fill out forms, make those contacts so that you can continue to make a difference. Now, we gave out www.stopthespray.org is a website. It has links to almost everything that we've talked about, the groups that we've talked about tonight. We have some ideas about moving on to some other more national groups like moveon.org and enlisting their help or similar help. And I really thank you for inviting us here today.